Hi, Dan Paulson here. For anyone that's been following my videos and is really interested in the pattern seeking and the decoding process, I need to keep making videos on how that's done. I know how to decode it and how to apply the healing process, which a lot of people want. They just want that. But to be honest with you, I would rather show people, I want people to come up with this on their own. This is a process that I can see now was very much in place in antiquity and well known, but our life with technology has changed so much we've simply lost this, that there is nothing magical here. There is a process. And that's what I want to teach, because I think it is the material self-empowers when you realize what it is and how it works. And that is more important. If you're teaching somebody what it says, they rely on you. If you teach them how to get it, then they're self-reliant. And that is, that's what needs to happen. Okay. So let's figure out the mechanical process of this. And this is going to be a little kind of technical. Let's look at a couple of things. First of all, you're going to need time, and it does take time to do this. Remembering that a couple thousand years ago, intelligent people prior to technology had a lot of time. All of the time we spent with media, driving, doing other things, working. Back then, we would have been interfacing with people verbally or just doing our jobs. We would not, it was a lot different. Time is really important. We don't have a lot. We have the capacity to know what they were doing. Given that that's the case, we realize that it's a mental process. And that is where I'm coming from, is exactly that. I continue to gradually transition these from outward looking as I'm realizing some of them are about my psyche, but most of them are weird. And as I'm going along and learning slowly how these are playing out in the psyche, at first it's very simple, and I don't recognize that there are component parts of the psyche. And as time goes on, I keep playing them out in here, and I start gradually seeing this structure. It's growing, but it's growing in my mind as an awareness based on mental experimentation and constantly playing it out, which took a lot of time. But then when you do, you realize, wow, this is just a mental process is what it is. And there are component parts to who and what we are that they've identified, and that is what we're working with. And it's just that simple. The most difficult part is, I think, in learning the analogs that culture is using. How they are transitioning from the outer world to the inner world. They're doing that differently. They've got their own styles, different things going on. There's a lot of similarities, and again, the similarities that we're seeing are part of that template. And the template exists everywhere, even where we don't see similarities. That's because the analogs have shifted so much that we don't recognize that they are still the same thing. So learning those analogs is what brings everything online, as well as knowing that that the stories are structured, the teachings are structured on a template. Taoism and Buddhism are not on that template. They have all of the teachings, but they don't exist in a mythology type story or a religious type story sequentially. They just teach, here's what you need to do. They don't have that structure where one person is chosen and then you get supernatural aid and all of that. It just goes right into, you become a product of what you have thought, what you have created, and it continues to cycle. It's a little bit differently. It teaches you exactly what you need to do. It just doesn't do it in a story format or a religious format. All right, I want to talk about just some general findings that I've seen that I think can help you along the way. These are things that I did not recognize at first, only after lots and lots and lots of interaction with them that I recognize them. And I think that if I point them out, it'll help you right off the bat. One of them is a Jesus interpretation that I've never laid out before. I've been looking at it for quite a while. And I think that it's not a spiritual teaching verse, but I think it is a life lesson verse. There's a lot of things that show up under Jesus's work, wherever the source is, that is more detailed, that has a lot more interactive steps, things that are in there that other material doesn't have. And this is one of them. The story of Jesus feeding the multitude. Remember, I won't look it up. There's a couple versions of it. Basically, he teaches people throughout the day. At the end of the day, they're hungry. They need to go home. but they need to be fed. The disciples say we need to feed these people. And there's a couple of fish and loaves, and Jesus breaks it all up, and they put it into baskets, and there's enough to feed everyone. And when they get done, there's even more left over than when they started. So that's a miracle story if you take it at face value. And I would look at it and say, oh, wow, people sat and listened all day long, and they couldn't walk home without eating. And this is 2,000 years ago. The story, as far as a literal thing, I'm just not going to look at it that way. There's a lot that resides there. In fact, as we talk about analogs, I have a lot of Jesus figured out. What I don't have is a lot of Jewish figured out. So when it comes down to the numbers that they're using, the 3s, 7s, 40s, things like that, I've worked on that a little bit. But in this case, when we go through the stories, there's a certain amount of baskets left over. There's a certain amount of people. There's, these numbers are being used to carry something else that I just need more people to look into this. I don't have all of those. But here's the deal. This is what really I have observed, is that as I study this, I struggle. It's a tough thing. I've made little progress. And then as I get to a point where I think I'm getting enough where I can start making videos here, I do. I start making videos. And some of the early videos, I know as I'm doing interpretation, there's a lot of, I don't get this one. I don't know how it transitions. This one, I don't quite have a handle on. There was a lot of that going on in the beginning. And what I noticed is that as soon as I started making the videos, that all of a sudden I was understanding the verses faster. And I don't know why. There's somehow a mechanism that comes into play as you begin to verbalize things. It's the same way as when we're trying to heal or when we're getting hurt or anything like that. As we're giving that kind of mental attention to something, it's actually emerging more for us. So I would make videos sometimes thinking, okay, I've got this and I got it figured out. And I would go back and listen to parts of it maybe the next day before I'd post it and go, oh, no, that's wrong. I got a better idea. I get that now. Instead of saying, I don't get this, I would get it a little bit. So I'd chop out that part, put in another explanation. I'd go through the video, and that kept happening. And I realized at some point, the more I am expressing myself, the faster I become aware of things. There's something happening there. Jesus feeding the multitude, there's more left over when you started. Spiritual feeding, you're feeding souls, you're feeding knowledge, information. So as we are exchanging knowledge and information, whether it's something that we hate or whether it's something that we love, we get better at it. We watch people in the world that are expressing and sharing hatred, and it gets bigger and bigger. As we do the same thing with this, it gets bigger and bigger. There's some mechanism happening there that's making, I don't know if it's brain networking or what, but if you want to learn this faster, start teaching it. Or make videos and don't even post them. Just make videos and then go back and look at them. I bet you're going to be going, holy smokes, I get this faster now. I don't know why that works, but it's written in there, and I'm observing that, and I think maybe that's what it means. There's a gotcha. There always is. When you start out on a search, if you have an empty mind and you say, I'm going to proceed based on what I find, you're okay. If you start off saying, I come from here, I believe in God, I believe in the Holy Spirit, I believe in these things, and I'm going to proceed, you're going to find more of what you're looking for. You're going to create that, though. You're going to find a way to, it's actually, you're creating more analogs that are sitting on top of the universe, energy, whatever's happening. I've got this actually so clinical. I know that some people don't like it. A lot of people like what I interpret, but don't like that I stay away from supernatural. And for me, I'm going to tell you what I have to. If I took supernatural on at any point in time, I wouldn't get where I am. I would not have found these answers. I would stop along the way and find ways of explaining things that I can't show. And I've always wanted to, if I can't see it, if I can't interact with it, if somebody's telling me something, I'm pretty unimpressed with someone's belief. Whatever their confidence is, if they can't show it to me, I don't know what they have. But I have no doubt they have what makes them happy. And they think everybody needs that. We all do that, Ryan. Okay, so what else do we have? So teaching it is going to help. The structure, the hierarchy, it's always there mentally. We've got the higher self, the conscious self, the subconscious self. These exist in our mind in a hierarchy. Who's in charge? The conscious decides what the quality is of the subconscious. That's a hierarchy. The healing has to happen from the consciousness. The consciousness has to take care of the ill child, woman, whatever the case may be. They're using a hierarchy. Those are analogs. They're not real. That hierarchy is there. So as you're playing out the parts, as you're looking for the story, understand that those parts fit in a certain place. But the child that has a demon would never be the consciousness doing the healing. That is downstream, right? So as you're looking and putting these things in, what are they doing? You've got your higher self, your conscious self, your subconscious self, the offspring of all of your thinking, the unified field that we all exist within, that the quality of our life flows through that field based on the quality of what we have up here and some other factors as well. Anyway, we know that. Okay, there's something else I want to say about the teachings that I look at humanity as growing very large and people need to be kept busy. I look at evolution and realizing that long ago everybody was busy. You were surviving. It was enough to survive, to make your clothing, to find some food to eat with no resources. That kept us very busy. As development comes along, as we begin emerging, as suddenly we have bunches of people and resources and food, agriculture, and we got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, eventually millions of people doing what? They'd be in trouble. Humans get in trouble. So one of the things is that, humans fear, we fear death. As time goes on, I see stories emerging that are good in the population. It's a story telling population. People don't read, they don't write, they're intelligent, but they're not educated. But they're storytelling, and they are doing something that is much more rich than what we think. That these stories are incredibly rich, that this is the apex of their media, and that they're doing more than just passing around fun stories, that they're teaching something in there. But if you look at it enough from Mesopotamia and the Enuma Elish, and just keep bringing things forward and going through all the mythology from Greece and other teachings, what you realize is at some point religion is a different thing. It's teaching a group of people morals and values that, the 10 Commandments aren't very much, but back then you figured, you need to tell people to, is there such thing as a fourth world country? Yeah, it was primitive, and there needed to be rules. There needed to be some kind of guidance in place, a structure. Here's how you function. Here's how you live for a chance afterwards. It starts bringing people that aren't going to understand, or they can't quite comprehend how to not be animals in their behavior. Something that guides them and keeps them on course. The society needs the religion. And the religion needs to be structured in such a way that it helps the people and that it does good. Unfortunately, along the way, we see some issues that happen, and Christianity took a real bad turn. All of a sudden, they dropped the idea, the Romans, that you have to follow what Jesus says. Do what Jesus says. No, it became just worship Jesus. Oh, yeah, that broke Christianity. However, the teaching is still there, and there's still people that hang on to it. Unfortunately, Christianity also allows a lot of people to justify incredible hatred without taking responsibility for it. They just think it's God's will. So, I really struggle with Christianity, not with the teachings of Jesus, but the fact that the Romans literally did things that you look at it and realize that they wanted body count in the church. They took over the salvation for you. It's still there. The material is still there. But they didn't have to do what they did. They should have said, you have to go to heaven, you have to strictly follow Jesus' teachings. But even then, people aren't interpreting them correctly. The religion works in the society, and it functions to gather people. If you look around the world and just look at people in general without religion at all, you see a lot of people are looking outward for supernatural things out there in space, whether it is various forms of theism, or whether it is There's people that, the ones that think that there was an advanced civilization that got wiped out before us, and that the pyramids and all that stuff come from there. All the Atlantis actually, existed and sank beneath the sea. That Thoth actually came here from Atlantis, and all over the place there are supernatural and very fanciful beliefs that are not grounded at all, that nobody can demonstrate, nobody can show, but you can look and maybe there's enough evidence for somebody to say, oh yeah, that's there. When everybody's seeing the same thing, but everybody's looking outward, once you look inward, all of that changes. Every bit of that outward looking, all over the place stuff becomes very centered into who and what you are. But if you bring that supernatural to do it, actually, as far as I'm concerned, anything that a person would invoke as supernatural is never going to be inward looking, even if they think so. It will be something that can never be demonstrated. So yeah, I don't do supernatural. It allows you to answer anything without it being true. So I'm stuck there. If people want to take supernatural, they can. I do get a lot of people that try to, very carefully word into, oh, you really believe in God and all that. And people don't get it. People don't get it. Well, that's all right. That's what we're here for. We're going to go. We're trying to figure out what they can't figure out and they don't know is there. But again, we're just spotting and finding and extracting something that was evidently very common, so common that it exists in all of the teachings. That was important. And what is that? We're emerging as animals, huh? Yeah, that's what the material is, how to emerge from that, how to get out of that sea of people, how to rise up above that animal idea. And the religions, hopefully it holds you there without allowing you to hurt other people. And at any point in time, that religion holds the exact material you need to turn inward. It's there whenever you look for it. We even see that emerge as analog and metaphor in Moses' story of the ark, carried by everybody, very pretty on the outside. Oh, yeah. But who looks inside? Only a few people can see inside. That is a story about the story. How the story itself is the ark. That is the vehicle that is carrying the true teaching. You just have to know this procedure. And then once you know this procedure, you can read anything. You can make the stories yourself. Jesus stuff. Okay, yeah, the numbers are something I'm not that familiar with. So when he's using 3s, 7s, stuff like that, that is very much a Jewish thing. When Jesus material came along and you look at the core material, the Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on the Plain, Gospel of Thomas, those numbers are not there. 3s, 7s, 40s, none of that stuff are used. However, as soon as it gets into the Gospels that were written by Roman people, those numbers do appear. So they took the teachings from Jesus, which went into different kind of analogs. You are the cup. You are the wine bottle that has to be, replaced before you put something new in. All of those analogs are something that are items. They're not numbers. They're something in life. But when all of a sudden Jesus' ministry starts, those numbers come in. So they're blending the Jewish with the Jesus stuff right there. You can see it. And the numbers, I don't know, but they're going to represent the same things. They're going to represent qualities that you need. This is the time to enlightenment, various things like that. Again, there's too much material for me. I just don't have time to look at it all. But once you see it and you open it up, you realize, okay, the only difference is I can't capture all of the analogs. And some you work with a lot, you get very good at. I'm very good at Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu. Hinduism, somewhat. It gets complicated. Greek, their old gods, things like that. There's a lot of depth there. Think about this. The story does not come from a point in time. The story comes from a point that stretched for thousands of years. These stories were, I would imagine, very evolved by the time we have a version that comes to us. That they are very developed and they're very deep by people who aren't sitting at home staring at the wall all day because there's nothing else to do. They're busy doing stuff, and that this is what they're doing. with Jesus' teachings. If you had a Bible that had a red letter edition, and you were to go through and then just read the Jesus component parts in a block of section. Some of them are very long, but if you get into the areas where there's a story and it's being drawn out, if you go and just interpret using this process, what the red letter parts are, what you'll see is a story that is being woven, and along the way there are these teaching component parts that are appearing. But it's woven into something that is called Jesus' ministry, and it looks like that could be a real thing. That's a story created, but as you dissect and look at it, you begin seeing that there are structured elements in there. Jesus' material is easy, but has more baggage than anything else out there. You got to sort that. Let me see what else. I think perhaps just forewarning of the extreme shift in the analogs, where this could be, let me think of the ways. This could be the male, and this could be the female, the Adam and Eve. As simple as that, it can be there. It could be like in the example of having ill offspring, where something is acting out, weeds that are coming out of the garden like we've talked about, demons that emerge that need to be exorcised. All of these are analogs for that, but then it can step into other areas as well. You might have a king and a kingdom, and the king for some reason doesn't have control of their kingdom. It's being overrun by someone else, a bad king or family members or something like that. And the objective is to go and get your land back. And what this is going to represent always in cases like this is the land is your mind, it's your life experience that you want. And what is being represented here is the idea that when we first start out in life, and if you go through the story, it'll sequence in the right spot, that we're at a point in time in life where we have realized that we are simply products of our experiences, and we want to change that. We've become whatever we experience, and that if at some point in time in our lives we wake up and go, "Oh my God, I want to change things. I don't like my life. I want to change the way the rest of my life is. I want to take charge. I see a way to do that." That this is representing the idea that our old self, the bad king, now must be defeated by the new king. So the elements can become very rich, but they're still carrying the same kind of componentry in there. Watch for them to get possibly big, but still keep them to this template. Don't let them wander in their grandeur. That is what makes them fun. That's what makes them go. Rich storytelling componentry like that is going to be incredibly important in that storytelling culture. Think about it if we were there. I don't think any of us would want it to be simple and over with. What are you going to do now? No, I think this would be very, very important, very rich for the population. It would be a very responsible thing to do and to put out there. I think that's it. As you go through and do that, that's what you're basically looking to do, is to take those stories, play them out in your psyche, but the parts belong someplace. If there's a million something in there, that's just a number. It's not a million something. It represents a part of you, or a concept, or when you're reading these, this can become the female, like I said, that has a demon that is hidden in there that acts out. It could be a weed that grows out of your garden seasonally that emerges that needs to be pulled out. There's a number of different ways of always putting this idea that this mind, this field, this land, this underworld, all of those, this far side of eternity, all of them are terms used to describe inside the mind. They are not different things. They are things used in their culture for the people that don't get it to carry the story. At any point in time, you turn it inward and it becomes this template, the self-healing template. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and post below. I want to show people I want other people to be confirming and saying, "Oh yeah, in fact, there's more to it than what this guy even figured out." That's what I want to see. And this is the most important part to me. I want people to look at it and go, "Yeah, here it is. This is just a philosophical thing that you play it out this way." And it always comes out with pretty much these answers right here as self-healing. Yeah, I'd like to see other people extract that from Jesus. In the story of Buddha, when he first leaves his life behind and he goes off to become a monk and learn what life is about, to seek enlightenment, he goes and he starts learning from people, and he learns everything that they know, and he eventually leaves them. And at some point he goes off on his own because nobody has anything for him anymore. That's what we're doing right here. We've learned from everybody and we're saying, well, you don't have it. There's something else here. We're going off on our own. And we're finding that the material is interactive material that we use for ourselves. It is different. It is different at this layer. And all of that external, all that outer stuff goes away. All the conflict, all of the variations. Jesus wasn't a divider. We shouldn't be either. We are. Anyway, this is stuff we work on. Anyway, again, if you have any questions, post them down below. Any specific Jesus verses you want me to go hammer? I'll give that a shot too. I'd be happy to. And yeah, I just wanted to, I know people are seeking, and even though I'll interpret the verse, I want people to do this. I want other people to get here and pass me. Love one another. I'll see you in the next video.